The Madison County Board of Education Public Hearing Number 2, Board Meeting, Voting Redistricting Session is in session. Mr. Perkins, would you do the invocation for us, please?
Sure. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we're grateful for your goodness towards us and how you constantly lead and guide us. In any meeting that we enter into, we need wisdom. And I understand, Lord, that only wisdom comes from you. So we ask that your divine presence will be here with us, that you would lead out in this meeting. Help us, O Lord, to make decisions, Lord, that's worthy of the care in which you've placed these children in. We ask, O Lord, that you would bless this board, bless our teachers, bless our students. We ask that you would bless this district as a whole, that it might continue to be a beacon that leads and guides our young people to greater experience in this life in service to others. And Lord, we ask that we would serve you honorably, that we would make decisions that glorify your name. Give us, Lord, the wisdom that only you have, and prepare us, O Lord, to be a blessing to others. We ask that you'll be in the midst of us right now and help us, Lord, to do those things that please you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
I recommend approval of the agenda dated December the 16th, 2021.
Motion. Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for the approval of the agenda dated Thursday, December 16th, 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Informational items, discussion of board district zone line redistricting. Let me do that over. Tongue-tied. That was a tongue twister. Informational items, discussion of board district zone line redistricting. So,
You got it.
Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Alan. Good evening. The purpose of this meeting is to review the Madison County Board of Education school board district boundaries. The U.S. Census, as required by the Constitution every 10 years, took place in 2020. Based on that data, federal, state, and local governments are required to review and, if necessary, adjust boundaries that accurately reflect the changing populations. Madison County Schools is no exception. To the Vice President's point, like the last meeting, this is not for school board attendance zone district lines. These are for district lines, not school board attendance lines. Andy Summers with Croy Engineering and his team were tasked with reviewing census data and providing best practice guidance as it pertains to our respective districts. They have consulted with myself and our attorney, Ms. Thompson, to gain historical data on previous redistricting efforts. We have 5 districts in Madison County. This board met virtually with Mr. Summers, and we were given information prior to this meeting that lays out possible changes to our district boundaries. This meeting will lay out those potential changes and give room for public comment. After Mr. Summers' presentation, we will discuss the potential changes and ultimately vote on January 6, 2022. Mr. Summers, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. This is mostly a rehash of the initial public hearing that transpired on Tuesday this week. I'll go through this fairly quickly tonight. So as Mr. Curry mentioned, Croy Engineering is primarily maintained school board GIS information and mapping since 2016 related to the the proposed Monrovia High School effort, and that was a school zone effort. This is, as Mr. Curry indicates, a school board district mapping effort with the 2020 census data. Our first step in this process was to gather the 2010 census data, look at the old files, bring the old district boundaries into our current mapping, adjust for areas that have been annexed into either Huntsville or City of Madison that are outside of the school board district jurisdiction. This is a snapshot from 2010 showing the total population, the deviation from mean, and percent African American population in each district. The parameters of the districting say that we can, the average school board district size, we need to be plus or minus 5% from that average. So that would be that total population divided by 5. We can deviate from that plus or minus 5%. All these numbers are in compliance, and as I say, as a result of the last redistricting from the 2010 census. The next step was to bring in current population data from the 2020 census and overlay it onto the current district boundaries. So this graph shows that raw census data brought into the current boundaries, shows the deviation from the mean. I've highlighted areas in yellow that are close to the 5% and areas in red that are outside of that 5% tolerance. So these are areas that we looked to adjust. The significant deviation from Tuesday night is per council. There was some confusion as to whether the city of Triana, the incorporated city of Triana, was included in the school board districting. Our initial presentation Tuesday night was based on that not being included. Council advised yesterday that is included, so we've adapted the numbers. They've made some very minor effects to the proposed school board changes, which I'll go into momentarily. Again, our primary task was to bring Zone 5 into compliance, which led to our first step, which was, if I can go the right way on my slides, there we go. There was a desire for the board expressed early on to bring this portion, Triana and the unincorporated portions of Madison County, west of Redstone Arsenal, south of 565, into District 5. All of these students are zoned for the Sparkman High School and the feeder schools feeding into it. Right now it's disaggregated and separated from Redstone Arsenal, and it's part of District 3, which really doesn't make geographical good sense. So there was a strong desire to clean that up if we could. With District 5 being low on population, that was the first step that we took, was to bring that population in. When we do that, these show the results here. This brings District 3 down below the level it needs to be. It brings District 5 above the level that it needs to be. So now we have two zones that are out of compliance. District 5 is now above what they need. District 3 is below what they need to stay in that 5% magic number there. So that led to the next step, which was shedding enough population off of District 5 to feed into District 4 to bring District 5 back into compliance. This was rectified by cutting off this kind of strange finger that comes out of District 5 into District 4. This is bounded by Jeff Road, Kelly Springs Road, and Highway 53. This brought the District 5 number back into compliance, and 4 could absorb the population without going out of tolerance with that. So those two are the major changes that you've seen from Tuesday night. We're including the city of Triana population and making this adjustment here to bring 5 back into compliance. The rest is exactly similar, or is exactly the same as what I presented on Tuesday night, which is then giving population back to District 3, which was a two-step process, taking 1, which was heavy in population, giving some of this area over here to District 2, and then shaving this portion of District 2 off to give back to 3 to get them back into compliance. This is a result of the District 1 area that we took off. There's that population there. This area is the portion of this portion of the district that is in the Buckhorn School District that was formerly or soon to be formally in the Hazel Green School District, and give that back into 2, which really more symbolically represents the Buckhorn School District. That shed a little over 2,000 residents off of 1, giving them back to District 2. And then we had the room to give this population a little over 1,000 to District 3, bringing that district into compliance. This area was created that is more faithfully represents the school zone boundary between Madison County High to the south and Buckhorn to the north. District 3 really in spirit kind of represents the Madison County High and New Hope school districts. So that was that shift there. The resulting population in the summary brings all the districts into compliance. This is the new population proposed for each district with these proposed changes. You have your deviation from the mean. Everything's comfortably within the 5% tolerance, plus or minus. And we have a percent African American population here. No significant changes in those demographics with these proposed changes. That is a very quick summary of the proposed changes. We have an online public comment forum established. This QR code scan will lead you to this SurveyMonkey site here. The website will collect name, address. Each of these slides is on the is in the comment form and available for commenting on the particular areas. I have graphics if any of the board members want to go in any of these district changes in detail, depicting roads and landmarks, should that be desired.
I think that would be wise to review in the public.
Okay. Let me go through that real quick I think I'm smart enough to do that. Okay, this is the first shift that I discussed. Fairly simple, 53 Kelly Spring Road, Jeff Road, moving from District 5 to District 4, again allowing District 5 to absorb the entirety of the Triana School District and the unincorporated portion of Madison County, south of 565 and west of Redstone Arsenal.
Where are those children zoned to
These are all Sparkman students.
high school,
Yeah.
of course, but do you
Monrovia.
know, it's Monrovia Middle?
They're Monrovia Middle.
Okay.
The Sparkman Middle would be on the other side of 53.
Where is the district line between Endeavor and Monrovia Middle there, Mr. Weiss? I'm not, where does that boundary fall? I didn't have that data.
Well, that would be between Sparkman Middle and Monrovia Middle.
Nick
What did I say?
Davis-
Yeah,
Nick
Sparkman,
Davis is-
Monrovia Middle. I'm sorry.
Nick Davis is generally the cut line between Sparkman Middle to the north and Monrovia Middle to the south.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a funny little jog all on Nick Davis, but by and large, Nick Davis is the cut line.
Okay, and Nick
But
Davis.
it's still
is-
everything, but I mean, from what I understand,
That's Nick Davis there.
everybody in that triangle is zoned for Monrovia Middle.
Well, yeah, and I guess you would have the information to confirm that.
I can confirm that for you, Ms. Rucker, no problem. I did not, I overlaid it with the high school zones, but I did not overlay it with the middle zones, and I can do that for you.
Okay. I guess my only concern, and maybe this is a Cindy question, is, so the procedure is that we talk about it, the public has a chance to comment, then we vote on this? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So my only concern is if somebody was planning to run, and if, they have to declare by the end of January,
Yeah,
right?
you're gonna vote on it on January the 6th.
And so all of a sudden, somebody that was running might live in that corner, and all this time they thought they were running for one district, and now they'd be running for another.
Well, luckily, both of those districts are up for election at the same time.
Right, but I mean, the dynamics of an election would change depending on which one.
Because you have that with every governmental agency that's going through this process. I mean, that's inherent to the process.
Correct, but we could do it differently so that we didn't have that issue, is my point. I mean, you wouldn't have to do it this way. You could put Triana, you might could make it where it didn't affect people.
You can move the numbers around and shift something back to District 3 if that's what the board chooses to do.
In other words, we could almost keep the boundaries, hers and mine, the same, and keep Triana in District 3.
I think,
That'd be an Andy question.
I think Andy and I had that conversation. I think it's not possible currently to stay within tolerances and keep the districts, the boundaries as they were, correct?
District 5 is out of tolerance. District 5 needs population, so there has to be an adjustment to District 5 at the absolute minimum.
So you have to put residents into 5, and when you choose that group to put in, that whole Triana area, it's too large. Is that what's happening?
Yes, ma'am. And I mean, presumably, we could do, if it was the desire of the board to leave, theoretically leave the Triana area in District 3, then we'd be looking at the opposite. We would need to take some from, the only option you'd really have would be to take some from District 4 and give back to District 5 in that instance.
Create the same issue, I guess.
Either way, there's going to be, that line's going to have to move. It's either you're going to pick up, in this case, your district loses this area and Mr. Weiss gains it. There's another scenario that would be, maybe we shave off something to the west of this and move it back south instead of, or move it back north instead of moving it south, if that makes sense. Vice versa. backwards. Move population from 4 into 5 instead of 5 into 4.
Yeah.
I think I butchered that. Did you understand what I was trying to get
Yeah.
at?
We got it. Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, unless you divvied up Triana somehow, you would encounter this problem one way or the other.
That's correct.
And it's
that
really,
gets-
it's really almost impossible to divvy up Triana. You really have to move it into one or the other. I believe it's not, I mean, Cindy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you can divvy it up into 2 districts. I think Triana's got to be in one or the other.
It would be sloppy for sure if we could. This is geographically, this is from my optics, is a very clean solution. Mr. Rucker, any other comments? Did I answer your questions adequately, ma'am?
I mean, it doesn't personally affect me. It might affect somebody. I mean, I don't know who's running.
Any
but-
move we make might affect somebody, but our goal is to make them as fair and equitable as possible, not make sure that we include any one person or area in one or other than maintain the requirements that we've already voted on and as close as possible to the school zone lines, if at all possible. I said that twice.
Yeah, that fixes the Triana zone lines, but it messes up those because that's more or less going into the District 5 zone.
Well,
Right, the same as part of Hazel Green coming into Buckhorn and part of Buckhorn going into Madison County in order to get the voting districts equitable. I mean, each of,
Well, I think you're fixing your side of the county, but this is messing up our side.
I don't know that it's fixing it. We flip-flop. There's an area of Buckhorn that will now be in District 3, and there's an area of Madison County that will now, I mean, it changes some of it. It is not as clean as, and it's not gonna be, because if you look at the map on ours, there's an area where Buckhorn students will now vote in the District 3, and there's an area where Madison County now moved, the same as Hazel Green. There's some of that area where students attend Hazel Green, but they'll vote in the Buckhorn, and that's why the board is set up to where we represent every school. We just have our area that we are supposed to be more familiar with. It's not, our side didn't make it to where it's exactly all Buckhorn people now in Buckhorn and Hazel Green and Hazel Green. It did the same thing, we just haven't gone over it in as much detail.
Okay, I thought it was fixing.
No, it doesn't fix anything. It fixes the numbers of voting people to the correct plus or minus, but it doesn't,
And it's close.
and
it's a
Closer
little
to the high
closer, but it doesn't, it still does not completely make it to where all of Buckhorn is in Buckhorn and all of Madison County. There's still some overlap.
It's
We just
correcting it rather than messing
Well,
it up. I mean,
yeah, well-
it's
say
still
it's
not perfectly.
correcting it.
Yeah.
It's just switching who was and wasn't.
And I think this makes it more correct because those Triana families do attend the Monrovia Community Schools. So I
That
think,
part of it does.
yeah, I think it
Yeah.
fixes that part of it.
And my district does encompass, the only 2 schools that my district I do not represent in District 4 is Monrovia Elementary and Endeavor. I have people that are in Legacy, Monrovia County.
And some of that could change.
Already, you mentioned.
Already, yeah, like the whole Kelly Spring area, that whole, and everything north of Nick Davis and east of Walteriana and that square, most of them go to Monrovia Middle and Legacy.
The part about Trina that I spoke with Nathan about when all this started was it just made more sense. Trina's not bothering me at all being in District 3. It's just it made more sense for the people that you vote for. We have people in Trina voting for a board member in Madison County High School in New Hope seat. It just didn't make any sense, was the reason why I wanted to look at that. But I mean, if Trina has to stay in 3, I'm good with it. It just made more sense for the parents, in my opinion. Voting for somebody that, where your kids go to that school would make more sense, and to me, but that might just be me.
Can you pull up those other couple of slides for the other 2
Absolutely.
areas?
This is the map affecting Districts 1 and 2. This area, again, is within the Buckhorn School District. Currently in District 1, The proposal would bring this into District 2. Moores Mill, Countess, and I told you falsely the other night, Mr. Curry, it's a little bit west of Baltimore Hill where that runs up. This is Beaver Dam Creek in here. We get back to it's Meridianville Bottom there.
Right.
Running back up to, my names are eluding me.
That's Egan. Right
Eakin, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Running up Moores Mill and then Oscar Patterson, and then connecting back into the old former boundary back over here, running down Moores Mill and Countess Road back over in this area back here.
The majority of that area is already zoned to Buckhorn attendance.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This moves the portion of your district, a portion of your district that's zoned Buckhorn away from you into District 2.
Okay.
That's correct.
And this one does move. It moves some people in Buckhorn, but it also moves some people in Hazel Green over. The line is kind of, right, splits that little section. Like the people that live in Ruth.
You talking about the top side of that line?
Ruth, Annette, and all that.
Yeah, you kind of went like that for your purposes, Sherry. You still are moving some Hazel Green people now into Buckhorn voting district.
There's, some of this is zoned for Hazel Green, is that what you're saying, ma'am?
I believe so. I believe that side, like where Haley Park and Robert Strong and the other side of Baltimore Hill all go to Hazel Green, I think.
This area here.
There's not a whole lot of people right there.
No.
And to your point too, Angie, there's people in the way north and the eastern part of my district that are actually zoned into.
Correct.
We
Correct.
found that out.
Yeah.
People found that out when they went to the polling station in 2016, and they thought they were voting for me, and they ended up not, so.
You might want to fix it. I mean, if it's not.
It's, if we need to adjust, I mean, there's
Oh,
there's enough wiggle room in the numbers if we need to adjust, and
Yeah, actually where the Moores Mill line is, the people on the other side of that, right where it says redistrict from 1 to 2, those people that are now in District 1 actually do go to Riverton Elementary.
Right.
So it doesn't completely fix school zones, the moves that were made for the voting districts between District 1 and District 2. But those have always been kind of, that area has always gone back and forth as the redistricting has occurred over the years as to what polling place they vote at and which one, whether they end up voting in District 1 and District 2.
the,
Why the Governance Acts state that we have to represent equitably all schools,
the,
familiar with the communities we represent.
the spirit of this change, and perhaps I've missed the letter of it, the spirit of this change was to grab anything that was in Buckhorn and move it over. If I've missed that,
I think
please advise, and I'll be glad to
as well as
rectify
could
that.
have been done.
Yeah.
It's just-
Okay.
It's never, you're never going to be able to exactly get every single one. And
Yes, ma'am.
the number of voting.
Because you have to move, plus you have to move census blocks. You can't, it's not you can't carve a custom slice. You actually
Correct.
are looking at block by block.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Again, if somebody wants to look at that, I'm glad to fine tune that. We still have another step that I do want to take. It's going to be a final cleanup. There's a few little anomalies in the data, 10s and 20s, nothing that's going to move the needle, but I do want to clean it up for clarity and to get it just so. So there's a final scrub that we need to do, and we could certainly take that on if it's the intent of the board. If there's something wrong with any of these, please advise, and we'll be glad to try to rectify that. Any other questions on this map? We good? Okay. So the final move is this 2 to 3 line. Again, the same spirit was this more accurately depicts the high school line between Madison County to the south and Buckhorn back to the north. The numbers worked just so that I could get enough off of 2, give it back to 3, to get 2 back down to where I need it to be, and then 3 back up to where it needs to be from the loss of the Triana area. Mr. Brooks, this is the, I'm glad, were you provided a copy of this map, Mr. Brooks? I know you requested it last time.
The same thing, just.
Okay. Berry Hollow, Hurricane Creek Road. We were getting back over to Maysville Road over this way. Coming up, I believe this is St. Clair over this way, and then you follow some small, very small streets in here. There's a lot of development that was in here. I think I had this drawn too far to the south. I was going off of Google Earth image last time and not getting directly from a GIS data, so this is a more accurate representation than what I conveyed to you on Tuesday night.
Pretty much everything from where it says redistrict from 2 to 3 to the right of that.
Yes,
goes
sir.
to Madison County High School. Everything to the left from there up is Buckhorn.
This is still
Which is-
Buckhorn?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, I mean, if it has to be that way, I'm good with it. But all that's Buckhorn. I mean, because if you go into my neighborhood, which is Cedar Glen off of Maysville Road, Webster Road is zoned for Buckhorn.
We're talking something like a line back in through here?
It's right there where that little pond is right there.
Right here?
Yeah, right in there. Well, over south, west a little bit. That's my neighborhood.
Okay.
Down.
But the high school district line is,
That's Buckhorn.
okay, this is Buckhorn here?
No. Just
Up here?
right above that.
Okay.
Yeah, all from that over to the left is all Buckhorn because it pretty much stops at the first road south of Ohatchee. Ohatchee is the cutoff, yeah. That's where the redistricting is, down to the left, the low road, the road south of that.
Okay.
The way it was before, all those people on Gilliam and all that voted in 2 and went to 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with it. I'm just, yeah, we're just swapping people.
Swapping
That's
around.
fine.
Is it the desire of the board to clean that up, or are we?
I think, well, from speaking from my own side, I think that's probably okay. Is that just one census block, that area right there?
No, sir. This is. I don't know the exact number of how many there are,
Okay.
but one block would be. I know he had a block up in here that captured this subdivision. It was something like that area right there, and just varying on the density of population you have in here, the blocks can be. You know, you got some bigger tracts that are over here in this
Right.
mountainous area that may be this big, like the area I'm circling here, and then smaller ones that, you know, I think this was divided into 2 or 3 blocks, actually, this area west of Maysville Road here. With just, there's more subdivisions and more people clustered in that area.
I think it's as equitable as
Yeah,
possible.
I think,
There's always going to be a split near the line.
right.
Again, I'm happy to clean it up. The spirit of it that I was operating under, again, was to try to give,
What's the numbers look like? Like it sets right now, if we was to go with this all together, what does the numbers look like?
pull it back up, and we can dissect that a little bit more. So you're already fairly low, Mr. Brooks. So
That's what I was saying. If I was to give any back to District 2, it's going to put her out of tolerance and me also.
right, and I don't recall offhand, it's what the lower limit of that is, but you're, you know, you start getting into probably 400 or 500, and you're gonna probably be bumping up against it.
And I've only got 1.24, so if you gave that back, we'd be flip-flop wrong.
Yeah, you can't give away much.
No, I'm good with it. I was just,
You can't give away much.
I'm good with it. I was just trying to,
Anymore, your people, I'm just kidding.
we didn't talk about that. Take your people.
I love your people.
These are some of the conversations we had in 2010. I remember some of these same conversations in some of these similar areas. So, yeah.
And this should show, this should be shaded, that light lavender color, lilac color now instead of that green. That is District 5 in this newer map, and which would include City of Triana with Redstone Arsenal still being in your district, Mr. Brooks. Any other questions or comments that I can entertain for the board at this time?
No, I
Okay.
appreciate what you've done.
Thank you very much.
It's fairly complex.
Yeah,
Mix. A lot of people in a short period of time.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to serve, and I'm honored to have the work and be able to serve the board. It's my great pleasure.
thank you, Mr. Summers. We appreciate it. Thank you. I know you got places to be, so I hope you're not in the doghouse.
I'll make it work. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a moment and see if there's any public comment as it relates to this redistricting plan. So if there's any public comment, you are welcome to come up at this time. Being that there is none, we're going to continue. Do we gavel back into the regular session?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to continue into our regular session.
I don't think do we need to do another recommendation? I don't think so. I don't think we need to do another recommendation for the agenda, but hey.
We don't have to go through this. Just all informational items.
All right, great.
Yep.
Informational items, item A.
Item a note, B. Item B. 1B in the.
Oh, yeah. Recommend approval of the minutes, yeah. Yeah, item B. I recommend approval of the minutes dated October the 14th and 26th, 2021, and November the 16th and 22nd, 2021.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the minutes dated October 14th and 26th, 2021, and November 16th and 22nd, 2021. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Informational items, item A, discussion of council allocation chart. Mr. Cubic? You might need the microphone, unless you got one at your table. Okay.
With the new allocations for the ADMs, the Madison County Virtual School and Sparkman Ninth will be earning an additional half counselor. So they'll be going from 1 to 1.5. And when we drafted the board's chart for the counselor allocations, we had the counselors, we were going to try the virtual school with one by itself, and then we also had extra help at the high school at the time. So with the new ADMs and with the new addition from the state, what we'd like to do, or we're proposing, is to put the Madison County Virtual School and Sparkman 9 in the same counselor allocation as we would our large middle schools. So that way, basically, they would be earning 2 counselors over there. The rationale being is that Sparkman 9, that second counselor can help out at the senior high as well as the ninth grade school. And at the virtual school, we have grades 4 through 12. So we've got a big wide band of testing. We got a big wide band of counselor needs there. So that's what we're proposing, is to move it out of its own little allocation chart and move it into the large middles. The second one would be a 187 counselor. So they would have the 202, and then they have the 187. So that's what the revised chart is. And we're bringing this to you because if Mr. Perkins will bring this as a recommendation next month, it's your chart that we're allocating them based on. We're not just using the state matrix for allocations as far as what they earn and don't earn.
What is the student count of those places?
The Sparkman 9 and the virtual school are both over 600 now.
Sparkman 9 already has a 202 counselor? Or-
They do.
Okay, so then,
Actually, I believe that one is on the extended contract as a 212 from way back,
then
as well as the virtual schools is also 212.
202, okay. Makes sense to me.
All right. Any comments? Any more additional comments? All right. Perfect.
All right, item B.
Thank you, Mr. Cubic.
Item B, Madison County Schools Cognia accreditation final report. Dr. Ballard?
Uh-oh. She's got to get up.
so thrilled to share our final information from our final report from our Cognia review. It has been a process this year. Our Cognia review took place October 19th through October 22nd. It was virtual, so that was the first time we've experienced a review like that, but we've been so pleased by the growth that we've experienced here in the school district. So of course, with Cognia, we're on a continuous improvement journey. So this allowed outside reviewers to come in and see where we are as a school district. And so I just want to stop first to thank you, the Board of Directors, and Superintendent Perkins, and all of our administrators, our teachers, our support staff, our students, and our community members who contributed to this accreditation process. So just to give you an overview, we had 182 representatives participate in our accreditation review. And it was all virtual, and what was very interesting in our exit report, the team mentioned that they did not grow weary through virtual interactions throughout their time with us, which we know Google and Zoom fatigue is real. But they said they really enjoyed the time with Madison County Schools. Also, what they discovered and shared in the exit report is that there was one common theme, no matter which group they were meeting with virtually, that they heard throughout their virtual visits, and that was, we are a family. And so that was the sense they received from everyone, and I wanted to share that with you as a board. Because last time when we had their accreditation review back in 2017, one of the statements that was shared is that we are a system of schools, but not a school system. So to hear that every group represented during the interviews mentioned that we are a family, that really showed the growth of the collaboration that's now taking place even more so throughout our school family, our school system. And so we're very proud of that. Continuing on, just to remind you, there were 3 domains of focus. It was the leadership capacity domain. They're looking at our learning capacity as well as our resource capacity. And so within that, they looked at 5 levels of impact, or how engaged are we with the various standards, implementation, the results, sustainability, and embeddedness. And I will also share in our exit report, our lead evaluator had conducted over 150 reviews from the pre-K level all the way to higher education. And in that exit report, or time with him, he mentioned that we were one of the top 3 school systems that he had been a part of the evaluation process. And so that was very encouraging to hear from someone who is respected when it comes to accreditation evaluations. And so also there are 4 areas here where they rate us, whether a specific standard is insufficient, if we're initiating that standard, if we're improving, or if we're impacting. And you can see here that we received 0 points for insufficient, 0 points for initiating, 13 for improving, and 18 for impacting. And according to the review team, that is very rare to see that. And so we were very encouraged by that. And also, I just want to remind everyone, this process took place before the pandemic, during remote learning and hybrid learning, and even when we were able to return. And so the power of this, it's amazing, the power of this, because we were able to pivot and still receive this type of a score. So just an insight, I want to highlight our score that we received this year and compare that to the score we received in 2017, as well as there were 6 insights they provided us in our final report. And I will share that final report with you after the meeting today. And so one of the things that they do is they focus on the Index of Education Quality score, known as the IEQ. And that provides a comprehensive score, a holistic score of our performance, and are we meeting the comprehensive standards that are set by Cognia. So in 2017, our score was 261.59 points, and at that point, Cognia was called Advanced Ed, but it's the same organization. But I'm so pleased to share with you that we've had substantial growth, and in 2021, our score is 337.10 points. So that was an increase of 75.51 points since 2017. That is substantial for an accreditation review. As well as we're 56.26 points above the median average network score. So if we're compared to other Cognia improvement networks, other school districts across the country, and even some abroad, we're 60.26 points higher than their median average net score. So that is to be commended, and that's where we are just so proud of our growth here as a school district. So when we look at our insight themes, the first theme that they notated is that we have definitely established, the Board of Education has established and promoted and protected that collaborative learning culture to improve the learner performance and organization effectiveness. So that was their first insight. The second insight is that the Board of Education uses a data-driven approach for assessing the system's programs and organizational conditions to improve learning. The third insight is that the governing board and the leadership team of Madison County adhere to the code of ethics and functions within its defined roles, and it's established and operates under policies and practices that are designed to promote and support system effectiveness. Theme 4 is we're proud of our PLC process, and we believe this is what has helped us with our collaborative, moving from a system of schools to a school system from an instructional standpoint. The Madison County Board of Education has implemented and is consistent with its systemic PLC process as we really develop and implement the curriculum based on the critical standards that they have set. And it's monitored and it's adjusted based on data and student needs. Insight theme 5 is where the focus area that they have suggested for improvement is that we need to focus on having a clear, formalized process for supervision and evaluation across the system. And some of those trainings have already developed specifically for the new teacher observation tool and things of that nature. And insight theme number 6 is that we definitely have been engaged in strategic and long-range planning, firmly rooted in its beliefs, our vision, the mission, and providing a roadmap for the instructional and operational practices of the system. So those were the 6 insight themes that they provided. We are so proud of the growth that the system has experienced, and we just want to thank everyone again for their contribution, and especially our students who have pivoted and worked very hard throughout the past few years. And so that pretty much is an overview of the results from Cognia. Any questions?
I do want to just say Dr. Ballard was a lead facilitator of this process and in marching us through this process, and she did a terrific, fantastic job. I do want to thank our team because of the work that they were able to do, working together as a family, making it happen. When you look at where we were several years ago and where we are now, it shows a great deal of work that our teams here in Madison County has done in order to continue to grow and improve and to move in a direction of providing a high-quality education for our students. So I did want to just make sure I brought that out in the open. Thanks, Dr. Ballard.
Thank you, Dr. Ballard.
All right, item C, discussion of CTC Precision Machine Lab. Mr. Kazort.
Good afternoon, board members. First, I don't like following up behind Dr. Ballard. She is such a great speaker, and then here I am. But anyway, we just wanted to bring this up for informational purposes to the board of what we're looking at and the reasoning that this has come about. This virtual academy there in the front is our existing virtual academy, machine shop, construction facility for our tech school. We have proposed a new metal building in the back, machine shop, for the machine shop as a lab. With that, I'll get into what we're really getting into. Looking at 5,500 square feet, we wanted to simulate what the machine shop tech students would see out in the real world scenarios. I did ask Mr. Romine to come in today to also, if you have any questions about that program, that he can answer those. But to simulate what they'll see in the real world, it gives them some room to expand, but at the same time gives us room to expand our virtual academy because it has been growing, as each of you do know. We're already looking at what we're going to be doing this summer for the virtual school. So with this, we're looking at 5,500 square feet. I envision it sitting right behind the school there now. It'll be a machine shop with restrooms for the boys or our students, with a covered walkway, and they will still use one area in our virtual academy as a classroom. With that, it helps us save money on our construction cost. We can isolate the noise from the machine shop so that when they're in the classroom setting, they don't have that. So I wanted you to see this. It's not been designed. It's only in here for information tonight. We can still, like I say, allow more expansion. We talked about a CNC machine. I think you were just telling me about another machine just a moment ago. And with this too, we think we can recruit more students for the machine shop, maybe even retain more, and free up the space for the virtual school. But that's the general idea at this moment. We've not gone any further with it till we brought it to the board for discussion and information to see where we go from here. So I open it up to questions either from myself or Mr. Romine.
We're talking in a completely new building.
Completely new building. As you can see from the diagram up here, does this work? Whoa, wait a minute. Go back for me. There you go. It would go right here. So we've already got the property. Everything's in place there. Obviously, be slab construction, heavy and electrical, just due to the fact that it's a machine shop. To be finished out inside to match what we would see in real world. It does have to be with the mechanical systems to control humidity, fresh air, that. But yes, it'd be a completely new building right there. Yes, sir.
Where is it now?
Right now, if you'll go back to that other, Austin, it's in this building.
It's on the front side of the virtual academy building.
Right. All of this right here now is virtual. All of this area is virtual school. We're going to go into this area this summer, but right now machine shop is here. They use a classroom here, and construction's back in here. But this area right now is the machine shop area.
So the construction classroom, where the building is, the structure of it, maybe a shed or something, that building will remain, that classroom will remain part of where the awning connects with the new machine shop.
Here? I'm sorry, I don't know that I understood your question.
So the awning, there'll be an awning between the machine shop and the building.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The room that's connected to the current virtual academy, is that the construction classroom?
Right here, yes, sir.
Okay.
So they would still have this facility here and this room here for classroom. And then in the future plans, as virtual continues to grow, then we would, like I said, in 2022, get this ready. But then this area here could be redesigned and updated for virtual.
So the equipment currently in the machine shop would move to the new machine?
Yes, sir. Yes, there's a large roll-up door here. It would come out and come into here and be reset up. Yes, sir.
So if we decided to do this, we would have to amend the capital plan?
Yes, we would. Yep, we would.
Yes.
So that would increase your space, obviously, for your machine, so you would get more of the same machines or like completely different machines?
Currently, the machine shop, if you look on the bottom level right there, the part in the back is considered a manual machine shop. It's for manual machines. The front part is CNC, and it is not equipped effectively for the current industry. One of the things that we need to add is a 5-axis machine, and we just don't have the space to do that right now, and we don't have the power requirements to add that as well. By doing that, it would allow us to effectively train our students in all phases of CNC machining. Where currently we're only limited to milling and lathing, or in those situations right now. By having an open space where right now that there's a dividing wall between those, kind of a half wall, it would allow us to reconfigure that to almost be more usable for our students, so that as they are preparing for both manual machining and CNC in year 1 and year 2, that they're more easily supervised by the instructors, as well as having a ability for them to expand, even adding potentially what we call a CMM machine, which is a coordinate measuring machine, which allows measurement of parts down to the 1/100,000th of an inch for tolerance purposes.
Is 3D printing any part of this process?
3D printing is housed in our engineering and STEM programs.
Oh.
If we did move into that, we would move into what's known as additive manufacturing, which is metal 3D printing. But the current cost of that has not come down enough to be very cost effective for a high school. A basic additive manufacturing printing machine would run you $750,000 right now. And we just don't have any funding that could support that kind of equipment right now. With adding the 5-axis machine, my vision is to leverage some money from private industry, legislators, and some federal money that we get to put that piece of equipment in. The cost of that is, for a small one, is about $135,000. So we definitely need some industry support to do that.
Yeah.
But it's there. Dynetics, Brown Precision down here have already expressed that they would love to see us get into the 5-axis machine because it benefits them when our students leave and can go into that workforce. That program is also one of our Calhoun dual enrollment programs, which would allow us to recruit more students into that program and hopefully expand that from a half-day program to a full-day program.
So how soon, in the perfect world, how soon did you all plan to get this out?
Very, very interesting question. The first thing we would do is obviously go to an architect and start getting it drawn. Current lead times on a project like that, a metal building, just for that, 52 weeks. So that would not, if we started today, it would be 2023, basically, before it. But we have that little window of time. Like I say, we're going to expand one area for virtual now. They can still use the current class through this next year. And while we're doing that, it shouldn't disrupt any classes or anything like that.
Okay.
And our goal is for it to resemble what they're going to go to in the future.
Do you have an estimated cost?
Estimated $850,000 to $1 million. Yes, sir.
I've got several friends that own machine shops, and they have come to me several times, and they're into it. The local businesses around here, I believe you could get help from them because I took machine shop when I was in school here, and the co-op program it benefits local businesses a lot.
Yes.
So if you could get them on board with us, they might even help us out with a machine or something.
And historically, they have helped us in the past with upgrading our manual machines to computer readouts. That was pretty well matched with local business and industry and our funding sources to upgrade those to industry standards. The thing about manual machining is manual machining. And I have asked many machine shop owners around town, do we need to move away from that and move straight into CNC? And the answer is resoundingly no.
Right.
Because we need that foundation to understand CNC.
Okay. Any other questions we may can answer?
Well, I will say, just comment, me and Ms. Bates went over to the virtual academy, what was that, Tuesday, Ms. Bates? And phenomenal improvements to the facility. So I wanted to give you credit for working that. The staff was fantastic. It was just an outstanding experience to walk through the furnishing. So well done on that.
Well, thank you. I think it turned out really well. New idea, open space, and that came with a lot of input from everybody in here. Ms. Tracy Ray, Dr. Minsky, all of us. But it was something new for a school, and I think it turned out really well to be in an old building.
Yeah.
And it's functioning very well.
Very well done. I will say the only challenge that you'll have, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is the power issues. They have some issues in the center, and you know how kids can plug up their laptops, and I don't know how you fix it. You also had some space heaters, so they were like, we got a breaker trip or two. So I don't know how you're going to fix that, but
I've heard that.
mentioned the power.
If I move all that machinery, all those machines
raise over there
out
going,
to
"You're
the
not
other
supposed to say
building,
that."
I've got more electricity. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just something as we improve it. If there's something we can do with the electrical, that'd be great.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sure will.
Yep.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Informational item D, supplement to the salary schedule. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to propose a supplement to the salary schedule. Our employees, district-wide, they're putting in exceptionally long extra hours based on just the issues that's beyond our control. When you start thinking about extra work that our employees across the board have put in, it's nothing less than phenomenal, and I'm appreciative for what the work that they're actually doing. And so basically, the reason would be basic three. Covering for employees who are absent due to lack of subs. One of the issues that we have is a huge lack of substitute teachers within our district. And so up to this point, and this is not just substitute teachers. This is bus drivers, this is CNP, this is custodial services. Every aspect of our district, our employees are putting in additional extra hours, time to make things continue to work, to make things continue to run smooth for our children so that our kids don't miss a beat when it comes down to educational excellence. And just to give you an example, if we need a sub in our building, a teacher is out, a aide from a classroom, from a room may come in to actually serve in that particular classroom. Well, at that particular point, you have the specials that like art and music and things of that nature. You have those specials that teachers end up missing that they can't bring their kids to. So those aides will come and sub in the classroom, and then they will go back and do their work that they have to do. Teachers are having to rotate, putting on rotating schedules to cover classes so that we have coverage and kids don't miss out on critical learning. Our bus drivers are running additional routes just to make sure they're covering. And in our school system, they have, all of our people are working extremely hard, extremely diligent to make sure that they're covering everything. I've gone to schools where I've seen administrators who couldn't get a sub to come in. They were in the classroom themselves. We have plans in place, and we've been working through recruiting. We've opened up our sub lines just so that we can get individuals in, working through advertising, putting in additional effort to get individuals in for subs, and employment. And this is not something that's just indicative to Madison County. This is everywhere. This is actually nationwide that these issues are occurring. And so in the event that we have a teacher who's not in the classroom, who may leave or something of that nature, we're finding coverage for those particular classrooms. We're using subs who are in our buildings more so on a full-time, who are coming into classrooms until we can get someone to come in and fill that particular space. And then we have professional development that we're constantly continuing to provide for our faculty and our staff so that they do not fall behind in terms of the latest and greatest professional development to help them in classrooms, to help them do the things that they need to do to continue to serve our students. And so what the supplement would be set up for, it's a two-time $300 supplement, and two times in that, it would be paid at the end, one $300 supplement will be paid at the end of the third 9 weeks, and then the second one will be paid at the end of the fourth 9 weeks, and it's for all full-time employees. And the reason why we do that is it's because by law we have to make sure that when we actually give a supplement, it's for work that is to be completed. And so by paying it out at the end of the third 9 weeks, it covers for that third 9 weeks, for the services that they render the third 9 weeks. And then paying it at the end of the fourth 9 weeks covers the fourth 9 weeks work that they're doing. And like I said, our faculty and our staff, I mean, we have guys at the warehouse who are driving buses, stepping up, doing the work that needs to be done so that our kids don't miss a beat in terms of the quality of education that we're able to provide. And I strongly believe that we should take care of our people, and I think this is a way to be able to make that happen.
This is very similar to what we did last year.
It's similar to what we did last year, yes.
Looks like,
We just had a different,
A little bit different.
a different set of challenges last year,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this is a little bit different set of challenges that we have this year.
it looks like the challenges we had last year, again, were nationwide with the pandemic and the struggles we had related to that. And the struggles we have this year are similar, as you mentioned, nationwide with labor.
Yes.
Labor issues and people having to do additional duties because of the absence of labor. So I certainly understand that and support this potential. The question I have is what's the cost of this?
It's 1.6 million, and that's covering, yeah, go ahead, Ms. O'Bannon.
2,400 active employees. We've got close to 50 to 60 vacancies, Mr. Cubic, right? So it was calculated on all those positions being filled for the semester. So it's calculated on 2,450 employees.
Okay. If you could break that down into days of the reserve, how many days would 1.6 roughly be?
I can tell you. I should be able to do math in my head, but I can't. These other guys can.
Like 4 days,
4 days?
I'm thinking. See if I'm close. See if my math is as close as it is.
4?
Sorry. It's approximately 500,000 a day. So
Pretty close.
what am I doing? Yep.
3 days.
Not bad.
3 days of, good job, Dave.
Public.
That's correct, Mr. Weiss. I'm not an engineer. I have to use.
I'm not an engineer either, so
And how many days total do we have roughly? In
As
reserve?
of the end of October, we have 2.25 months. However, let's take that back, because a lot of that money is set aside. It's A&T monies and things of that nature. So we have about 10 million
Okay,
in the reserve.
10 million reserve.
Yes, sir. That has not been earmarked
correct.
Gotcha.
or set aside for something else.
Okay,
Because we're going to pull for some of that for the capital plan as well that we discussed at fiscal year end.
okay.
Good job, Mr. Weiss.
You don't think I pay attention to all that budget stuff that you do at the end of the year, but I do pay attention.
Are we good?
Pulled from that 10 million.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Item E, discussion of IT Department Network Specialist job description. Ms. Rodman?
Good evening.
Evening.
So our network specialist recently resigned, and after we reviewed the current job listing, we realized it no longer matched the functions that that person is actually performing. So in an effort to be a little more attractive to qualified individuals and to update some verbiage, proposing some changes to that job posting. As you can see on the left, that is our current job posting. The proposal is on the right. The biggest or the most noticeable difference in the first for the qualifications, I know that's a little small, is that originally we were requiring a high school diploma or an equivalent. And then the proposed job posting, I'd like to say that we prefer an associate's degree or a higher education. Further functions, some of it is just verbiage, as you can see in there. We were configuring XP, and that's been a little while ago, so probably about 20 years ago. We'd also like to include that that person now is responsible for our security cameras, our installation, our cabling, and our VoIP system, which is our phone system. A lot of the functions overlap with our system specialists, which is a good thing, but they also specialize in individual areas. So it's just a breakdown to more accurately represent what that person is currently doing and what we would like to attract as far as skills go. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those or qualify any of the changes.
Those are good changes.
So we're not going to vote on this until the next meeting? Okay. And you're good without your IT network specialist until sometime in January when we can get it posted and all that?
We have started making adjustments to cover.
Okay. At least you're happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Rodman. Item F, discussion of classified employees coaching and athletics. Currently, we do not allow or permit classified employees to operate as coaches. And in the past, it has been for good reason. Hourly employees fall under the hour wage rule or law. And so what we wanted to do is to try to alleviate and give our high schools and middle schools an opportunity to have additional coaches to help with their athletic programs. And one of the ways that we've looked at being able to do that is by putting together and putting in place protocols that will help that. The protocols that we've put in place is for the very purpose of making sure that we're able to track those classified employees so that they don't go above and beyond what the hour wage law allows. Once they go over 40 hours, then they have to be paid time and a half. And so we actually put together a protocol, and I think you all have a copy of that, to basically track what that would look like and make sure that we keep a close eye on those individuals. We have actually only allowed, or we're only planning to allow 2 per school, one for the girls program and one for the boys program, starting out so that we can make sure that everything runs smoothly and that it's tracked properly. But that will give our schools an opportunity to hire some of the individuals who are on their campuses already, who have the skills and the opportunity to serve as coaches. I asked Mr. Kubik to kind of cover some of the scenario bases and the funding pieces of that, and he's going to do that now.
So this is just one scenario, and basically following along on the chart. This is if we typically when we hire an instructional aide and it's someone new to the district, most people come in with 3 years of experience in some form that we can give them credit for. So they typically start out at step 3. Okay, so step 3 for an instructional aide is $17,479. All right, so the first thing, and that's the scenario we're going to use. It could be the numbers are going to get worse, I should say, as they move up the steps, okay? But this would be basically an entry-level coach's aide coming in. So the first thing they have to do is they find out what the daily rate is. So the daily rate is $96.03, okay? And the employee works 35 hours a week. So there's 5 hours that they can access before we get into an overtime wage an hour issue, okay? The coach's supplement piece, or the coaching, that piece is at $8.50 an hour. So, and they're scheduled, and this, when I talked with Mr. Everett, we kind of tried to come up with a figure, a time, and we came up for this scenario as 15 hours of coaching time. That's roughly 5 days at 3 hours a day. Depending on the sport, depending on the length. I know when I was coaching at the high school in football, a Friday night was the 6 or 7 hour night. So you can see how we're using 15 hours here. This is a conservative estimate, okay? I just want to make sure that, it could be greater than that or it could be shorter than that, depending on what the sport is, okay? But at 15 hours, then that's at the $8.50 rate. So the weekly rate for this person with their instructional aide position and their coaching position is $607.70 a week, and that's for 50 hours. 15 of it for coaching, 35 of it for instructional aide. All right, so the next step, what they have to do is everything has to be it's proportional and it's prorated by the number of hours worked. So talking with Ms. Gross and our CSFO, Ms. O'Bannon, the way this works is they have their regular pay for their full-time job, which is instructional aid. Then they get 15 hours of pay at the $8.50 an hour. The halftime is the blended rate, which is the $6.08. That's the extra. So that would be the time and a half. So there's 10 hours that is billed out at $6.08. All right, so when you're looking at the coach's aid piece, the actual salary that's being paid for that coach for a week at 15 hours is $188.27. Well, there's also benefits on there because this is a benefited employee. So the benefits is 20.18%. So you have to multiply the 188 by the 20.18%. That's $37.99. So you add that to the 188, and so for every week that they work 15 hours, it's going to be billed at $226.26. We good up to this point? All right, so this is where now we're going to start talking about what it's going to cost the schools. All right, so I took 3 scenarios. I took a $500 supplement, a $1,500 supplement, and a $3,200 supplement. Again, this is for a 15-hour coaching time along with a instructional aid. So what we have to do is if you take the $226 and you multiply it by a 10-week season, it's $2,262. If you go a 12-week season, it's $2,715. And if it's a 14-week season, it's $3,167. Okay? So basically, that's the amount of money they're going to make for a $500 supplement, a $1,500 supplement, or a $3,200 supplement. The difference is the board is going to be paying for the $500, the $1,500, or the $32. So the balance is what the school's going to have to come up, or the booster program, or however the school's going to fund that coach's aid. So just so that you can see, if you look at the very bottom line, it's the school debt. That's what I have the little red there. If it's a 10-week season and it's a $500 supplement, the school is going to cost the school $1,762 for that $500 coach's aid. If it's a support employee, it would be $2,215 for a 12-week season, and it'd be $2,667 for a 14-week season. That's your worst case scenario because it's the $500 supplement. As the board assumes more of the cost, that's less that the school is going to have to pay. And so you can see how the numbers run out. If you get to a $3,200 supplement, they're not going to make that much based on wage an hour. So what would happen in those cases is they would receive the additional $937.40 above, or the $48.44, or the $32, depending on what the. So we wanted you to see how this calculation, it's a very in-depth calculation, and our payroll manager, Ms. Gross, she has a spreadsheet when she starts inserting the numbers and how many weeks they work. Most likely they're not going to work every week a 15-hour week. Some weeks it might be 10, some weeks it might be 25. You know, this doesn't take into consideration tournaments over the weekends, spring breaks down at Gulf Shores. I mean, there's a lot of things to take on where these numbers can quickly climb. But we wanted to give you guys at least a foundation for what you can understand. And we did this with the principals as well to kind of let them know what they would be looking at. And, you know, I asked Mr. Everett, I said, is there any way you can give me a definitive number for, and he said, Ken, it goes by, you know, whatever sport it is, you know, it could be anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 to 25. It just depends on the length of sport. If they make the playoffs, that gets extended. All those different variables are taken into consideration here. But this gives you at least an idea of what we're kind of looking at, money-wise.
Are you saying the school would get the $937.40? Is that the negative number? Does that go to the school?
No, that would go to the employee. Right. The school wouldn't have any cost in that. They would just get the board supplement, and it would just be at that. We would make sure whatever the board supplement was, they would get that money or greater depending on whether it's overtime or not.
So to get the $3,200 supplement, would that be a head coaching supplement?
Most of the 3,200s are like assistants.
Assistant? Okay.
Now, the middle schools, it might be because, when we look at our salary schedule, it's all the way from like $500-600 all the way up to, $10. There's a wide range in there, and it just depends on what their need is and what they're looking for. The smaller sports that have those lower supplements are where it's going to be the greatest hit on the school.
So the chances are that if they're receiving a $3,200 supplement, they're going to be working more than 15 hours. That's probably a safe guess.
That they're going to work greater than 15, yes.
So
If they're a $3,200 assistant and they're an assistant in football, there is a really great chance that they're going to go above 15 hours a week.
Those numbers it's going to go maybe 25 hours. So
Correct.
got you.
But I wanted to give you something so you guys could see how the calculations worked and how you can kind of get an idea, and you can go from 15 hours and start, plus or minus from there.
We had anybody express interest? Obviously, there's a reason this is coming out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, we've had, for years, we've had individuals schools who've asked for this for years. When I was a principal, I wanted to be able to use our aides, However, I understood the wage hour and the cost that's involved in that. So this is a way to give schools an opportunity to be able to do it while we stay within the parameters of the law, and they understand, and that's why we've kind of put together documentation for them to sign, so that they understand exactly what they're getting into, and that they will actually track, the coaches' hours, limit them if they need to make sure that they're able to cover the cost that's over and above the supplement that the district actually provides.
Is there a cap on it? Like, my scenario would be, could a classified employee get this supplement, work over the hours, and actually be an assistant coach and make more than the head coach?
Yes, that is a possibility.
Okay. Can we, is there a, can we put a verbiage in there for a cap so we don't fix this problem but mess up this problem? You get what I'm saying?
Well, I don't want to. I'll speak about this, and I'll let Ms. O'Bannon fill in if I'm wrong. The wage and hour issue is federal law, and we are going to have to pay them for exactly the amount of hours they work, irregardless of what it's going to cost. So we can't cap it and say, you're going to have a $3,200 supplement, but it can't go past $4,000 because the head coach makes $4,200. We can't say that, because if they're in a season where they go 16 weeks, or they're in a football season, or whatever the sport is, and they excel and they get past that threshold that we set, we still owe them money, because otherwise we'd be in violation of federal law.
Unless we cap them.
Mr. Brooks, one of the things that a
Unless
principal.
we cap the hours. We say you cannot.
You can't cap the money, but maybe
Right.
cap the hours.
You can't work more than X
But you,
number of
but
hours.
you,
But if
really
you do
can't-
that, you would be
Then you make
shooting
it
yourself in the foot. Yeah, or you might have a coach. You can't take a coach.
I mean, that becomes a management issue with the coach. The coach then has to manage that individual's hours, depending on how the season's going. But that becomes a management issue with the coach to manage the hours, to make sure that person's available for postseason, or whatever the case.
I wasn't actually saying cap the money.
I'm sorry,
you
I
can't.
misunderstood you.
But you can cap the hours,
Yes.
which is gonna put people in a bind.
I think you can. I think you can cap the hours to an extent. I don't think you can really cap the hours. The work is the work. So if they go for, there's, to your point, there's a management issue. But if they're going through the postseason and they're progressing, they may make more than the head coach. But it's a completely different wage and hours. Certified employee. It's just a different animal. I don't know if you can fix that.
As long as the head
Potential is there,
coaches know that
regardless.
going in. As long as the head coach knows going in that there's the likelihood that this individual could potentially make more than.
Well, then, from a management standpoint, you may only put them in roles that limit their time, so they don't go into the postseason. It's to your point, it's mainly a management issue. They're going to have to.
It's a management issue.
Manage.
This all has to be agreed on by head coach, assistant coach,
AD.
AD. Everybody. So everybody has a hand in it. So that's.
And, you know, there was a question of, could we, and Ms. O'Bannon, please add if you need to, you know, could we use the chrono system for this? Well, we can't. The chrono system is designed where if an employee goes on overtime, it automatically computes comp time at time and a half. This doesn't work. So this is gonna, for these positions, we're gonna have to go back to handwritten timesheets. And we've already expressed to the principal, if we see coaching 5 to 7, 5 to 7, 5 to 7, 5 to 7, we got a problem because, you know, most sports teams don't practice for exactly a 2-hour period and that's it. So everything has to be on the up and up. Everything has to be documented completely because we need to make sure we're paying them and not violating federal law. That's the most critical thing here.
Because they cannot volunteer. There is no volunteering in this. You have to get paid for the hours that you put in.
Yeah, but what if you are managing that assistant coach's time and that head coach says in order to make sure you're available for tournaments, you only come to practice from 5 to 7 so that we have enough time left over for you to be there on Saturday for games or, see what I'm saying?
Maybe
I know you said you don't want it to look like it's consistent, but if you're managing and trying to cap that time appropriately, then it may have to be consistent.
Well, and that maybe, but if we see basically 5 to 7, 5 to 7, 5 to 7, we're going to investigate that and find out what's going on because there's going to have to be something there. And you know and to be honest, you know, when we had paper timesheets, you know, we would have classifications of people that they would come in and they would come in on Friday and they go, you know, 7-3, 7-3, 7-3, 7-3, 7-3, 7-3, turn it in and get it signed. I mean, you know, they weren't using the timesheet the way it was designed, which is you come in, you sign out, you know, and so we just need to make sure that we're doing this well because we don't want to get in a place where you get an advantage or a situation where it's someone gets upset because they were relieved of their coaching duties, and then they come back and say, you know what, that coach told me that I wasn't supposed to, you know, fill the timesheet in from this time to this time, but I actually worked all these hours, and now we get into these investigations where there's all kinds of back pays and everything else. And so we're trying to, if we're going to do this, we want to do it so that we have it very structured and set up so that there's not these violations because we don't want to, you know, Mr. Perkins wants to take this forward to provide them with an opportunity, and we want to make sure we're going to do it correctly so that we don't, you know, abuse this situation.
I mean, I would, to your point, Angie, I'd almost say that the coach, if that's the agreement between the head coach and this coach, you're only going to work 2 hours on these days. That becomes a part of the agreement. I mean, when you sign the agreement, you're signing to understand that, and then that covers us, you all, because now the coach, the assistant coach, whatever, they all understand what the parameters are. So if it does come back 5 to 7, 5 to 7, 5 to 7, well, you know that he was told he was only going to coach 2 hours a day, and he understands that. I'm just saying, keeps everybody clean.
But let me say, I appreciate whoever worked on this. I know it was a lot of people, and I'm sure it was extremely confusing. But
It's a little confusing right now,
it is.
but I do appreciate it.
I understand the gist of it, and I appreciate the spirit of it, and I appreciate who worked on it, whoever worked on it, because I know there's a lot of hands involved in it, and it will definitely benefit the schools. So that's one of the things I was looking at.
On this right here, this one, the pay rate, it says amount paid by the Board of Education is based on athletic supplements. Is that intending to say that they're only paying what the athletic supplement says and the school is paying the rest?
Correct. So the board would, if it was a $1,200 head swimming coach, the board's responsibility would be $1,200, and that's all the board would pay. Anything that goes beyond that is the school's responsibility, or the programs, or boosters, or however.
So if the boosters wanted to do significantly more, they have the opportunity to do so with limits.
Which they do. A lot of them do anyway.
But now they can only pay up to what the supplement is. Am I correct? Like if we offer a $3,200 supplement, the booster club can only pay a $3,200 supplement. Is that correct?
That is what's written down, yes, sir.
Okay.
But from back on this form right here, from the person who's getting hired's perspective, their pay is not based on the supplement, it's based on whatever the time they work. right?
based on their.
So it needs to be clarified, I think, because that is only meaningful depending on which person you are.
No, you're correct, ma'am. We don't, until, every single one of these will have to be hand calculated, because they're all gonna be different. If they're coaching, this sport, and this sport requires them to work, 22 hours a week, then it's gonna have to be based on, and this is just one scenario of one classification of employee. If it was, if it was a CMP worker that for some reason they wanted them to coach, they're a 30-hour employee a week, so theirs is going to be different. If it was a bus driver, then the bus driver is a 20-hour employee. So then 20 hours can be at regular time before it starts and over. So we can't say, we just picked a scenario just to give you an idea, because until we start getting into it, and that's why we want to do just one of each right now, so we can kind of watch this, monitor it, and make sure we're doing everything correctly, so that we can keep our hands on controlling it right now and see how it goes.
So foreseeably, you could have schools hiring a custodian primarily to do custodial duties, but also as a coach for that specific purpose.
Yes, that's possible. And then that would be a 40-hour employee. So that would be starting off at time and a half for every hour.
Okay.
Bus driver's the most favorable.
So schools would be, if this grows, they would be specifically looking at positions that are more favorable to this situation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Except that you're probably looking at the position as the best possible coach for your sport, so it's whatever they can do, and so they may not be a bus driver. So it just depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for trying to get an extra body out there with the best situation for the school as far as cost, or the best coach?
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
but you get the idea that there's a lot that goes into this, and we just want to keep it controlled so that we can kind of monitor it for a while and make sure we're doing it correct.
I appreciate us taking our time with this and going slow walking it, just to be sure this doesn't get.
Karen's been like.
But I think you can understand why our supplements are set up for certified employees.
Correct.
Because you don't get into that weighted average, that blended rate. And that's why we haven't gone this far in the past.
What is the driver of this? I mean, is it just?
Again, for
We've
years,
got coaches in the wings wanting to do this.
we've had schools, principals who've had individuals who are qualified to actually be good coaches, who are classified individuals. And they've wanted an opportunity to give them, to be able to allow them to coach. And so that's the reason for doing this. Otherwise, we won't do it. We'll have to, say you just can't do it, and we haven't done it for a while in the past.
Have they been
Part of it
Officially.
is to make it
Officially.
equitable for people who are qualified to coach. Just because you're hourly doesn't mean that you should, and you're a great coach, doesn't mean you should automatically be knocked out of something just because it requires manual input to be able to pay you. I mean, I think there is, as much as there's an equitable piece to an hourly person possibly making more than a coach, it's also inequitable in some ways to eliminate that person's availability to coach based solely on the fact of how they're paid during their day job.
The key is documenting it correctly to be in compliance with the law.
And I understand that. I mean, in the hospital, timesheets I do it every other Monday from 7:30 to noon. So I understand, but it also helps our patients get the best care from the most qualified people. And I think this, in some ways, could do the same thing for our students. It helps them getting coaching from some of our best qualified people who may not be certified teachers.
What I meant, Ms. Bates, was documentation from the coaches.
Yes.
That's key, that is correct.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. You've got to make sure that there's a structured way to make that they're using, and everybody's using it exactly the same way.
And I do believe Dr. Minsky is working with Mr. Everett, or has asked Mr. Everett to create a draft that would basically be, in quotes, I'm going to say a contract, but it would basically say where the principal, the head coach, the assistant coach, all these people will be signing that they're attesting to the fact that they are going to honestly and chart every hour as legally responsible to do it. Is that correct, Dr. Minsky?
Yes, sir. They have the draft of that.
Do we have any districts that currently do this, that we know of, that kind of have gone through this, and how they chart it, and if the growing pains? Do we have any ones that we're familiar with?
I believe that most districts are not doing this, but I'll be glad to ask ASB.
I'd be interested to know how.
I think there's some real concerns with your classified people receiving a flat fee for doing an unlimited number of hours of work, and then these people are over here earning overtime.
Ms. O'Bannon can,
That's an issue to look at.
she can help me with this, but the only monkey wrench that I foresee in this is that you've got booster organizations that will hire teachers or outside individuals to come in and coach. Soccer specifically is the one that I'm thinking of. So how do we balance what a booster organization may want to pay somebody? You've got one of these individuals that's coaching track and getting paid whatever it is that we're paying them. But now you've got a soccer team that's bringing in an outside coach and paying them significantly more out of a boosters. How are we going to balance that?
Sir, that's not supposed to be the case. Boosters are allowed to pay for a coach up to the
Okay.
cost in which we provide
I just
coaching.
want to make sure that
for
we balance
yes.
that out.
So now again, if the person's hired as a coach, and for example, these classified employees could be a head coach as far as Alabama High School Athletic Association goes. However, one of the assistant coaches would have to be a certified individual per Alabama High School Athletic Association guidelines. The boosters could then pay them up to the amount that they receive from there.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that because I know that there are booster organizations that do pay for outside coaches or outside individuals to come in and coach.
Yes, we took care of that with that limiting it several years ago.
Good. Okay, that's fine.
Mr. Curry, periodically through the association, the Alabama Association of Personnel Administrators, we will get these every now and then where they'll send out the listserv and the question will come out, is anybody doing classified coaching, and they'll be piping in, we're not going on that road, we're not touching that, what I mean? So the overwhelming attitude about it is it's not an area to go down. I can't say that all districts are not doing it, because just some of them that answer back, it does come up. Usually it comes up about once every other year. Someone will ask that question, is anybody doing it? Especially smaller districts where they have a harder time getting candidates for positions as well as coaches.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you,
Item
Mr.
G.
Cubic.
Thanks, Ken. Item G, discussion of superintendent salary resolution. Mr. President?
Yes, so I've asked Ms. Thompson let me back up a little bit. So January 28th, I believe, is qualifying for candidates for boards of education and other legislative positions. We are required as a board to put together a resolution to address the superintendent's salary. Now, we don't have to change it, but it's required that we do it. So I asked Ms. Thompson to put together a resolution. It's a starting point for me. It's certainly open for conversation for the superintendent position. If you look at superintendent positions across the state, we provided you with that documentation as well. Madison County, in my opinion, is underfunded in the superintendent position respective to the population size and ADMs of other districts. So I've asked her to put together a resolution. Some of the high points of that resolution would be to increase the superintendent salary by 10% from where it is currently. Currently, according to this superintendent salary schedule, Madison County superintendent makes $65,930. It does not include the vehicle allowance, I believe. So that is not included in that figure. I want to increase the salary by approximately 10%. I want to consider removing the car allowances and allow for mileage out of town. I want to remove the evaluation incentive pay, which we'll discuss very briefly a little bit later, and still require an evaluation. I want to consider keeping the goals, requiring a state of a school's address the superintendent would provide to us, and change the central office leadership team for the evaluation's sake to the central office executive leadership team. So that would make the reviewing panel of the district smaller. Of course, the board would still review. So she has provided you with a copy of the resolution. She's also provided you with a copy of the current resolution, and I want you guys to have that. And if you had any input you wanted to provide, if the salary, if we need to look at adjusting that, I really want to get away from the incentives, in my opinion. I think we need to have a flat rate for the superintendent's position. And, vehicle allowances and all that, I think we should just bundle whatever we can into the flat rate. If you look at, for example, I'll take a district similar to ours, Shelby County. They have roughly 20,000 students, and their salary currently, base pay is about 30,000 higher than our current superintendent. So
Under the current resolution, the superintendent salary was 153, base salary.
right.
That's correct. And there've been state mandated.
State mandated raises, I believe, 2 in the last 2 years, correct? So that's 2, each one of them is about 2%, correct? Roughly-ish? Okay. So if you tack on the 2% pay raises, as I'm trying to get to the 165 that they've got on this sheet.
Right.
If you tack on the 2 pay raises and the $9,000 or the $8,000, the $9,000 fee, that comes up to roughly 167 and change.
The pay increases are on the base pay only,
Correct. I
and that's how you
factored
calculate.
base pay.
I can send you the calculations.
No, what I'm saying is, I'm thinking that the 10% that you're proposing should come off of the base salary without the. It is?
It is.
930 is the base
Yeah.
salary without the 9,000 car allowance.
That's not what I'm is it really?
That is his base salary now. I mean, that's his compensation for salary right now. That and does include the state mandated raises.
And it does not include the car?
No, sir,
It does not. No.
Okay.
it does not.
All right. I just want to make sure. I want to make sure that we're calculating the right numbers.
Right.
So right now it's 160, what?
Right now, the base is 165,930, and then we allow for a car allowance, and we also have an evaluation incentive pay.
And the car is 9,000,
Car is 9,000.
so that's roughly 175.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, so it's a $7,000 raise.
Roughly.
Yeah.
And I looked at that as a base. If there's some things you guys want to consider adjusting or in the resolution, I'm certainly open for discussion on it. All right.
Question on the evaluation.
Yes.
You want to keep evaluations but not offer the incentive?
Correct.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that is the next superintendent, whoever it is, they will be elected.
Correct.
So, don't take this the wrong way, but does evaluation really matter?
Well, we're required to. We're
I mean,
required.
but it doesn't matter I know we're required to do one, but you're taking out the incentive for one.
Right.
So it's just,
But we're increasing the salary, adding it to it. I don't think the incentive pay is of value as an evaluation tool.
Okay.
So it's my opinion to just eliminate that. We still evaluate, we just do not have an incentive tied to it.
okay. I'm good with that. I was
Yeah, and to your point, it's an elected position, and it really, it matters
Hate to say
how we
it don't
feel.
matter.
It really matters how we feel about it and the leadership team.
Right.
But when it comes to evaluation, it's to me, it's not really relevant from an incentive perspective.
So if you threw that in, then it would really be, I'm not sure what the history of our payout is, but if you paid the max, then we'd really be moving from 180 to 182.
Roughly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any more comments?
And then this will be voted upon in January at the, or, yeah.
The January 6th meeting.
We compare ourselves often to Shelby County. They're at 195.
Yeah, that's what I was
Have
looking at.
some upward, I mean, you could go, I mean, you could justify going up. I don't know if we need to, but we could.
Yeah.
I looked at this chart, and my math's not always the best, but it looked to me like there were approximately 30 superintendents with higher salaries in the state. Most of those are
Smaller
city-
districts.
City superintendents, and higher than your superintendent's salary.
Yeah, like Montgomery County, of course, they have more students. They're at 224. We don't really know how accurate these numbers are, I don't guess.
That's true,
Well,
because if they report a base salary, one thing that I've uncovered at different times looking at different things, is they may record a base salary, but they may give a living allowance, of several thousand a month, or a car allowance. I mean, sometimes school systems want to say the salary's this, but the superintendent's actually earning significantly more through allowances.
Yeah, I would say it's at least this. That would be
That would
accurate?
be a minimum number.
Right.
So our goal is to make sure that we attract good candidates, but then your candidate pool is limited to who lives here, so
Right.
it's, I don't know.
Or is willing to move here.
For that express purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but don't they have to move here a year ahead of time? So they would have had
Yep.
to have already.
You have to live in the district a year
Yeah, they would
before,
have had to live in, yeah.
before announcing.
And I think it is more transparent to eliminate all the extra and just say, this is what you bring home if you're the superintendent.
And I still want to, again, leave a travel allowance. Understand the superintendent will be traveling for the district, so there will be some, up to not to exceed $8,000.
You can't go beyond the 8 if the board approves those additional travel. That's the way it's currently written. If you want to change that, that's up to you guys what it says, but.
Yeah, and I think that leaving it with some room to go above the 8, because if we're going to go by the government outlay for travel, and then it goes up, then we have to be able to compensate for that. It's what, 54 cents an hour, a mile right now? 56, so if halfway through they go to 62, I realize 8 cents doesn't sound like much, but it does when
does.
you're
It
traveling
adds
as
up.
much as the superintendent does.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to just flat out, straight. It's less confusing, it's more definitive.
And we do have some room for growth if that salary, if that's not appropriate. I thought that was a good starting point for us. Again, I'm open for
I
comment.
think the flat is better.
Okay.
Instead of what you proposed is better than this plus this. If you do this, you get this. I mean,
I still have
On an
to
elected
recover.
position.
yeah.
Yeah, from the incentive being
Right.
based on a certain state test,
Right.
and then they changed the state test, so then we
Correct.
didn't know how to pay the incentive. That was,
Yeah.
I just haven't recovered from that. Very difficult.
All right. Well, Mr. Perkins?
Administrative items. Item A, I recommend approval of the 2022-2023 high school academic guide as submitted.
Motion?
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the 2022-2023 high school academic guide. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Who moved and who seconded? I'm sorry. I missed it.
I did not move or second, did I?
You seconded.
I did.
She seconded, I motioned it.
He motioned, second.
I'll be darned.
Item B. I recommend approval of the financial statements and payments of bills for October 2021 as submitted.
Motion?
Second.
There y'all go again.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of financial statements and payment of bills for October 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item C, I recommend approval of the update to the financial procedures for the Madison County Board of Education as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the update to the financial procedures for the Madison County Board of Education. Any discussion?
Where's all this coming from?
Ms. Rucker, I sent an email with this is from our Financial Policies and Procedures Manual. When we need to add something, if we're not just going in to clarify or make small changes, we like to bring it to the board for an update. But this is on our website, our Financial Statement Policies and Procedures Manual. With the ESSER monies and the CARES Act funds, we have additional compliance requirements that we must comply with, and in doing so, we have to have written procedures for that. We're required to have written procedures. So we were already doing a lot of this. We just needed to get it in writing, and the proper forms to track our time for employees that are paid in whole or in part from federal monies, how we're tracking that time. It includes our full-time employees, our contract employees, our subs, our tutors. And so I sent you an excerpt of all the changes in an email on Monday, just so that you could look over it. And I'll be happy to explain it, and we can go through it tonight if you'd like. The other area, other than time management, is inventory management for equipment, devices, anything purchased in whole or in part with these federal monies.
So they sent you, I mean, where'd you get the changes? I mean, is it some document, some standard document you got them from?
No, ma'am, we set up how we're going to do it to track the time. We were given information on what was required with some recommendations. So Ms. Bass, Ms. Gross and Ms. Bass was instrumental in getting the forms of, we've already been doing this time and effort management. We just expanded it to cover our contract employees, our substitutes, our aides. So we just took what we were doing and added additional forms so that we could comply with the new guidelines. So we took what we were doing already. Different districts will handle it differently. However, whatever they're doing, they must have those procedures in writing and make sure that we're following them. And we will be monitored in the spring, and this is something they will look at. But these guidelines just came out last summer as we received more of the ARP-ESSER monies and things of that nature. But the guidelines do apply to all federal programs. We're just expanding on what we already had.
Okay.
For both time management and inventory management.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item D, I recommend approval of the bid as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of bids. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item E, I recommend approval of the change order for Lynn Fanning project as submitted.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the change order to the Lynn Fanning Elementary School project. Any discussion?
That's money back, or money that we will be getting back?
Yes.
Mr. Kazor's here, but yeah, it is a credit, Mr. Brooks, on the total construction contract. It will help us, when you look at total project cost, I've itemized those, but it will help us offset some architect engineering fees, and it'll get us very close to the budget of $6 million. So it came at a great time, and it just keeps us on target to meeting our budget. We've done a great job. The operations team has done a great job with this. For example, we budgeted in the capital plan $6 million. And sometimes all the soft costs are not considered when we do that. But to date, we've paid $6,020,000. This credit will bring us down to $5.9 million. And the retainage, I think what we owe once is around $135,000. So we'll just be a little over the $6 million with our budget. And once we make the final payment, we've used up all of our BRAC monies, and we did use some of our local bonds, our refunding bond issues, but it's not money that we can just put towards something else, but it's helping us with some of our overages on this project, so that we will be in line with the budget.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. O'Bannon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Item F, I recommend the board authorize Mary Stump to negotiate and enter into a resolution session agreement, mediation agreement, or settlement agreement in any special education complaints from the day of this board action through December 31st, 2022 regarding special needs students. I will make sure the board receives a copy of each complaint and is updated on the status of these matters as they proceed.
Motion.
Second.
Let me see. I have a motion and a second. This looks different than my sheet, so I'm gonna repeat this. I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for Mary Stump to negotiate and enter into SPED agreements and settlements through December 31st, 2022. Any discussion?
This is just a continuation of what
We're already doing.
we just do it.
That's correct.
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item G, I hereby recommend that the employment of employee number 1, a bus driver at Meridianville Middle School, be terminated effective 15 days from the date notice of termination is issued.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of employee 1, bus driver at Meridianville Middle School.
What is the date of notice?
Date of notice, Ken? Date of notice.
It'll be 17 days from tonight.
January 2nd.
We do, it's 15 days from the board meeting, but we usually put 2 days extra in there because we use the service of the employees. So whenever we have, we do a 17-day out from the board meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item H, Item H, I hereby recommend that the employment of employee 2, custodian at Mount Carmel Elementary School, be terminated effective 15 days from the date notice of termination issued.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the termination of employee number 2, custodian at Mount Carmel. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item I recommend approval of the contracts for services as submitted.
Motion.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for the approval of contracts for services. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item J, I recommend approval of the team's contract as submitted.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of team's contract as submitted. Any discussion?
There is one change to this. We got notification from the state of Alabama that the employee will be recognized as a master's level for a master's degree with this degree. So the salary that's on there was the bachelor's level. So the master's level is the actual salary, which is $579. So we'll change that out because we have to pay what his contract says. But he's actually going to be on master's level, not that.
Okay. What's the difference in that from bachelor's to master's level?
It's around $7,000 for, this is someone beginning of their career. It can go anywhere from a $5,000 up to $16,000 difference depending on, their degrees and length of service to public service. That changes.
Okay. Very good. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item K, I recommend approval of the personnel items and addendum as submitted.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of personnel items and addendum as attached. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Item L, I recommend approval of the supplemental contracts and the discontinued contracts as submitted.
Motion. Second?
Motion and second for a recommendation for approval of supplemental contracts and discontinuance of contracts as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, before we go into executive session, is there any comments that the board, anybody would like to make for the good of the board? I just want to say from the superintendent's annual evaluation, that was done last year in 2020. We did not publicly announce it, but now is the time we're going to go ahead and announce those scores for the superintendent's evaluation. In 2020, that score was a 4.5623 out of 5. And this most recent score for the superintendent was 4.0755 out of 5. That, of course, factors into the incentive pay that possibly in the future will no longer be something we consider. But I want to lay those scores out. So 2020, we did evaluation in 2020. We just did not announce it. And good job, Mr. Perkins, for your work. You're in the 4s. So you're solid as a superintendent according to our evaluations, and thank you for that. So I need a motion. We have a,
Yeah, I have a certification for pending litigation and imminently likely.
we have a certification for pending litigation, imminently likely litigation. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
I'm just gonna stay here.
We won't be voting on anything else at this moment, so